Hey guys, I am back. My name is Angela Key, and this is Crowns and Curls Space where Sister Queens meets Curls. And we are going to be looking at the topic of toxic affirmation, toxic praise. And as I mentioned in my last video or videos, everything that I'm sharing with you is simply my process, whether I've healed from it, things that I've gone through, and just wanted to walk that out with you. And so, talking about the need for praise from others in a toxic way, because I want to be clear that there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting your kudos. There's nothing wrong with getting, the applause that you deserve. There's nothing wrong with that. It's what happens is when it starts to, if it's coming from a unhealthy place, you are not being your true self. You're not able to be authentic or vulnerable in a space, and you sacrifice that in order to get the praise, in order to get the affirmation that you feel like you need. So coming from a personal perspective, for me, these three things were, things that I started to understand were being, I guess, challenged in a way that, I wasn't being who I truly was. So the first thing that we want to look at is the inability to be vulnerable. You hide that vulnerability in order to fit in order to get approval. And some examples from my personal experience, just being in relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be an intimate relationship, but being in a relationship with people, being in a relationship with an individual, and not being able to be vulnerable. One situation I remember, or experience I remember, trying to be vulnerable, expressing myself, and sorry, somebody's interrupting my healing. And trying to come from a vulnerable place. And I remember sitting down with them and just sharing, hey, I feel like I am not a part of this quote unquote circle. I feel like an outsider. And I remember getting like the coldest look, like pretty much, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like that's the energy that I got from them. And when you put yourself out there in a vulnerable way and it is rejected and it is not acknowledged, is disregarded, is not valued, a healthy person would just say, you know what, this is not a safe space for me. This is not a safe space to be vulnerable with you all, whatever. And so I am going to remove myself from the situation. But if it's a need for affirmation from individuals and you ignore the fact that it's not healthy, that's when things can get tricky. One other experience I remember, there was a loss of a individual, of a loved one, and I was very close to them and visit them all the time. And I remember it came to the point where it was time to kind of come together at their home. And I hadn't been there in a while because it was just hard, you know. And so I finally got up the courage to come. And I remember like getting out of the truck and I just started bawling. You know, I was being vulnerable in that moment. And I began to cry. And I remember being told, getting the reaction from the person that was with me, and they were like, we can just go back home if you're gonna cry. And that response, what that did to me was it taught me, it was teaching me to to compress. The first example too. And because you are in a place that you really want their approval, you ignore the fact that this is not healthy. And I know personally for me, having the inability to be vulnerable can really truly change your character because you're not being your authentic self. And we're going to touch on authenticity, or I guess we can just, that's a great segue to go into the inability to really truly be authentic with people you're around, because you are putting on a mask, and that mask gets their approval, if that makes sense. That that gets their approval. So for me, when I was trying to be vulnerable and it being shut down, it created a hard surface for me, or it created a hardness for me. I know in the past, and I've really been working on it, but it stems back to my childhood and wanting to be vulnerable and not being acknowledged, or it being disregarded. And you start to become hard. You start to behave in a way where you're short, for me, where you're a no nonsense person, and it really you really start to behave in a way that's not attractive, because you're coming across as being mean. You're coming across as being very blunt, you know. And for me, that was a defense mechanism, because when I was soft, when I was being vulnerable, when I showed you who I was, it was not received. It was swept under the rug. So seeking the praise from whomever, and you starting to become this person that you're not, because you really want their approval. That's what happens when you start to seek, when you're looking for that affirmation from individuals that ultimately they're not healthy. Even if we look at social media for a minute, what I learned about vulnerability, it is your strength. But giving it to the wrong person, or giving the wrong people access to it, can be detrimental to your heart. And how many of us have seen people utilize like Facebook as their personal diary, if you will, and leaving yourself open for the wrong criticism or the wrong feedback, and it really doing a number on you internally, because you are trusting people that you don't even really truly know, or they don't really truly know you, and you're opening yourself up because you want the likes, because you want to be seen, because you want to be affirmed. And it's nothing wrong with any of that, but when it's done in a way that your vulnerability, your identity, and your ability to be authentic is compromised, that's when it can get very dangerous. And that's another thing for me. Like, I just decided that I wasn't going to be on social media. I just was like, you know what? I have a issue, or I have something that's not quite together in regards to being affirmed that I need to look at, and I don't need to be on social media right now. I don't need to, because I'm seeking something. I'm seeking something that is not necessarily something that I need. So let's get off social media. I don't need, I don't need that right now. I need to find out where this is stemming from. Why am I searching for affirmation this way? Again, there's nothing wrong with getting likes. Nothing's wrong with that. But if it's coming from an unhealthy source, and if it's something that you feel like you really need, and you're constantly checking like your page, you post something, right? You put a picture up, and then you're looking to see how many people like it, who's saying anything about it. And if you're not feeling, not necessarily something that I personally went through, but it may be geared towards that. If you feel like you haven't gotten that affirmation, you feel away, and that, to me, that's when it can get unhealthy. So those two examples for me was all a core of me wanting to be affirmed, for me wanting to feel accepted. And so I pull back from being so vulnerable, and in doing that, it caused me to become hard. It caused me to be not me, and I didn't understand at the time that feedback that I was getting was coming from a broken place. We're entrusting broken individuals who have their own work to do. We're putting the fate of our acknowledgement, or our affirmation, or affirmation, or praise, in the hands of people who are not even healthy themselves. So yeah, that's one of the things that toxic praise can rob you of. Another one, and I touched on it, was the inability to be your authentic self. I have been told from individuals that I now know were individuals that were broken, or that are broken, and it was coming from an unhealthy place, that my personality comes across as, I don't know, wanting to steal the spotlight. I'm just a bright light, and I'm one of those individuals that I don't like anyone in the room to feel like they're not seen, because I know how that feels, and because I have experienced that. So I am intentional about making sure I see you, at least making you feel comfortable, making you feel acknowledged. And I'm going to smile, and I'm going to interact, because that's who I am. But I have been told that, oh, well, I'm not going to say that you think you're better than everybody, but okay, they just said that I think I'm better than everybody, right? But where is that really coming from? Is it that you feel that I think I'm better than you, and now you got to check your insecurities? Individuals like that you have to do away with them. Because, and this individual, that was someone at the time I was seeking their affirmation, their praise. And so at first I was like, maybe I am, maybe I do, maybe, I'm starting to believe the crap that's coming out of their mouths. You see what I'm saying? Because I am so focused on, am I going to get my approval from you? That I'm about to receive lies. I'm about to receive the filth that's coming out of their mouth, because they don't have the love that they should have for themselves. And individuals like that only seek to pull people down to where they are because they're insecure. So I was holding back who I really was. I wasn't being my authentic self because I didn't want that person, these people, to feel like what they said. And it's crazy because we are literally taking what people say as the gospel, as it being true. Because this is a need that we feel we have to fulfill. We need to feel affirmed. And we got to stop and say, well, why is that? What is that coming from? And that's what I had to do through the process of, self-development and rediscovery. I started to dig. What is this? Where is this coming from? And it always goes back to the beginning, your childhood. It does, because as an adult, we are feeding what that little person internally, that little person that's inside of us needs. When we deal with these types of situations, it's not something that just all of a sudden just came about. This was something that was always there. It's something that started in the beginning. And for me, as a child, I never felt I belonged amongst my siblings. I never felt like I fit in. No matter what I did, it seemed like it was always something that could be nitpicked, or saying, oh, well, she is this, she thinks she's that. Not understanding that this is what this person feels within themselves. It's not true. It's the insecurity with them. It's not a you problem, it's a them problem. And the sooner you come to that conclusion, the quicker you are freed of the need to be affirmed, especially by individuals like that. So the next thing that toxic praise can rob you of is your identity. Who you really are. I just pretty much was leading up to that with not being my true self and me looking to, I'm always focused on what they're going to say. And I used to be the person that, would say, I don't care. I would have that attitude like, you know what? I don't care what you think. And in one of the discussions of my sisters, part of my sister circle, was we were talking about the fact that, one of the ladies mentioned, we all really truly do in some way, shape, or form. We do care about what people think, but we may not stay there. And so that's where that comes from. Like, because if that was the case, if I really truly didn't care about what someone thought, then I wouldn't be adjusting things to fit people's narratives and not being true to me, because I was so concerned about what they were going to say or what they thought. The healed me really truly am walking in this this light of not being concerned. I'm going to unapologetically be authentically me. And if that means I have to unplug and disconnect, whether virtually or physically with people, so that I can be at peace with who I really am, then that's what I'm going to do. So losing your identity, behaving, or adopting other people's behavior, other people's image, or what they think you should look like, or how they think you should behave, or how they feel like you should talk. I remember I was at a wedding, and we all were the same age, but I just felt like I was just too old fashioned or too mature. But I remember I was, saying, this is going to be great. You are about to be a wife, and you can, you don't have to worry about being guilty of being, what I mean. And I'm not one to like use profanity. But I remember I was like, you can just be freaky, whatever I said. I just was substituting what most people would use the other word. And the bride was like, why can't you say the word? Like, why can't you say the word? You can't just cuss for one moment. Like why you like really just pretty much shunning me for being who I was. And then she started talking about the fact that I hung around people older than me. So it was almost like, you're weird because you're mature and you hang around people that's older, like really like coming at me. And I'm sitting here like, wow, really? First of all, I'm here for you. And you're being really extra in front of your little friends and making me, look a certain way. But in that moment, I was true to who I was, but it was just that point of how people are so fixated on other people's approval of them. And so I just remember, first of all, I was like, I don't even want to be here, because that's what I'm talking about. When you're yourself, I was going through it again with someone that I was supporting. And now I know that it was a lot of brokenness. Like, I was around a lot of brokenness. I was broken. And so I need to let me heal. And when in the process of healing, really truly healing, your spider senses are tinkling. And now you're able to identify what's healthy and what's not. But I remember, me feeling like a little bit like, it didn't make me feel good. You know what I'm saying? And had I decided to jump on the bandwagon and just started using words because they felt like I should use words because that's what they were doing, that would be a problem. That would have been a problem. But losing your identity, if I can touch on, from what I've seen as well, I know beautiful women who are extremely intelligent, but they tend to put their body first as opposed to their minds. And what I mean by that is like the backside shots, like, hey, be proud of your curves and everything, but that is not who you are. That's not your true identity, but the need to be seen and the need to get the likes and the need to get the comments and all of those things, we see that. We see that behavior being displayed, and they're saying that this is who I am. But is it really who you are? Is it really who you are? Because I know you to have multiple degrees, but someone on the outside looking in would never know that because you're showing yourself as an object. You're displaying yourself as an object, and that's not who you really truly are. But in the world of seeking toxic applause, we see that all the time. We see people you know, just put on this mask, put on this show because they really want to be seen. For me, I had to ask that question, why? Why? Have you ever had to ask yourself, after participating in a conversation or some, behaving in some type of way, why did I do that? I didn't really, I don't really feel like that's really who I am. Why? Why did I comment that way? Why did I join in on that conversation when I know I don't really agree with it? Why? I care about the applause. Because when I get the applause, I feel value. I feel important. I feel seen. And that's something that we all need to really sit down and really ask ourselves. You have people who are in relationships that are not happy, but because they seek to be approved or affirmed by those they love, they stay in it. They don't even like the person that they're with. And it's not funny, but I'm just saying. But they stay in it. Why? Why are you there? Now, I'm not telling you to do anything, but ask yourself why. Why am I there? I'm not being my true self. I mean, people who are in relationships that have been putting on the front the entire time because they feel like that's what their parents feel like who they need to be with. That's what gets the pictures. Those pictures gets the like. That's what looked good on paper. But you're not really being who you really truly are. And so there's resentment, there's insecurity, there's anger, there's so many things that brew from toxic applause. But if I can say to you that Christ had already affirmed you. You are enough. You were enough for him to die on the cross for you before you even chose him. You are valued. You are enough. You do not have to seek any longer the toxic applause, the toxic praise. You don't need it. Learn who you are. Disconnect from social media, from toxic people, and get to know yourself. For me, my healing process looked like this. I stay in the Word every day. I try to get in the Word via devotional, but I do a little bit more, and I guess I took on the practice of this through my church when we were fasting in the beginning of the year, and I started journaling. And when I started journaling, I started to dig really deep, because that was my safe place. It was like my journals were like my letters to Christ. I could talk to him about anything, because I'm gonna tell you that Jesus should be your BFF for my believers out there. He should be the one that you tell everything to. You know why? Because he already knows. But he has no motives. There's no bias. It's a safe space. And when I say that this really helped me to start breaking some things down and getting it out. You still are able to get it, because I get it. Being able to talk to your friend girl, your homeboy, whatever the case may be, it can be therapeutic, but in the wrong hands, man, it can really lead you in a whole different direction. So to keep that, I call it my intimate space, to keep that safe, write it down and talk to God about it. Tell him. He already gave you identity when he died for you. He said you are enough. He said, I love you unconditionally. I'm taking you, all of you. He says he's married to the backslider, which means, you got a lot of people saying, well, before I talk to God, I need to get myself together. Why? We're never going to have it all together. And that's the beauty of following Christ. He loves you for who you are. He meets you where you are. Find your healing in Him, because your true identity has already been given to you. And it's not the outside world. It's not outside feedback of people who are struggling themselves, and they get off on telling you what you're not good at and you're not good enough because they're broken. You got to start protecting your safe, your intimate place. And my way of doing that helps me is through journaling. And then I read back. Sometimes I go back at some entries that I put in my journal, and I know that when I was journaling, I started to understand, like, as a young girl, I never felt affirmed by my father. And I feel like I know in doing all of this, especially with healing, true healing looks like, man, you started to give grace, especially to your parents, because especially to someone who may have, raised you. You may feel a certain way. You may feel like you didn't get whatever you needed from them. And in doing that, that's what fuels that toxic need for praise, because you're seeking it because you didn't get it when you were young. For me, like I said, as a young lady, I didn't feel like I got that from my dad. And my dad did the best he could. And I feel like he was trying to do that later on in life when I became, as an adult. And I started to think back when I was journaling. I was like, wait a minute. I remember a conversation with my dad, and my dad telling me this. And my dad said I was good at that. And I was like, wait a minute. I was being affirmed. And when I say that shattered the I guess the glass ceiling of me feeling like I needed that from, I'm gonna be real, because there's a lot of us women out there, from a man, because that's where it stems from. When I said that shattered that need, because I was like, I got that. But even if you haven't gotten it, even if you don't know your father, even if you didn't get that emotional, connection with him, or he just wasn't there, or whatever the case may be, your heavenly Father already affirmed you. He said, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. I know the plans that I have for you to prosper, for you to have a life of abundance. I love you. I got you. And that's what we all are looking for. Let's be real. We all are looking for someone to have us. And how many of us have, fallen victim to being disappointed, to being let down by people that we thought had us? Christ has you. You are free to be who you are. You do not have to put on a show. You do not have to put on a mask. You can come to Him and say, you know what, God, I'm mad because I feel like this shouldn't have happened and that shouldn't happen. And it's your safe space. Get the affirm, the praise that you're seeking from Him. And let go of the need to feel affirmed from anybody that's not uplifting you, that's not adding, value to your life, that's not growing you. It's nothing wrong with seeking that. But again, the whole message behind this is when it's toxic, when it's not healthy. When you get healthy, when you start to heal, you are going to start to see, the unhealthy energy of those people that you once thought, and it's not everybody, but we can point it out. You'll be able to point it out, if they made you feel less about yourself for being who you are. If you feel like you really needed their approval and you're willing to get it at any cost, even if it's unhealthy, it's toxic, you'll know. And for me, I have, like I said, started to disconnect from anything that's hindering me from being who I am. I'm not going to dull my light for anybody. I know my light went out. My ring light decided to go out earlier. No. I'm not dulling my light down for anyone, because this is who I really truly am. And I don't need anyone to tell me that I am this person, that I need to do better. I don't need toxic praise from anybody. It's great to get praise, but if I don't get it, I'm still okay with it, because I know who I am. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of who I'm becoming, and I'm going to keep doing my work, and I'm going to surround myself around those who are doing their work. So until the next video, guys, I hope this helped you. I hope this made sense. I'm just being my authentic self and sharing with you who, Angela Key is, and what my walk of healing looks like. So until the next video, remember you are queens. Remember that your crown was custom made, custom fitted for you. So wear it. Get your healing. Don't worry about the naysayers. Get rid of the naysayers so that you can walk out your authentic life. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.